I remember watching a video some years back of a father sitting with his son, and his boy couldn't have been any older than 5 or 6 years old. And he's explaining to his son how basically, the police are out there to get him. He's telling this to a kid. The police are out there to get him, and that essentially he must be aware of, police hunting down young black men. As a matter of fact, he was telling his son that because of your skin color, the police are after you. Now, if this is a conversation being had 50, 60 years ago, that might be a little more accurate, right? If we're to look at what the Democratic plantation or the quote unquote Democratic Party was pushing as far as policy, it would be easier to believe. Because, yes, there was such thing as a KKK, which Woodrow Wilson, Democrat, brought back into life basically after Ulysses S. Grant looked to eradicate it. Shout out to my future brother in law for putting me up on game on that one. You definitely had them pushing certain policies, etc., to target young black men. You had the likes of maybe a Kamala Harris over in San Francisco who was putting black men disproportionately to prison for, some of these pettier crimes. So there are those cases for sure. But when we get into the reality of when these messages were being pushed, including right now, I mean, up to this point, they're still having their effect. When the entire BLM scam, and I'm going to call it what it is, a scam, when the entire BLM scam was being put together. Mind you, the reason I'm calling it a scam is not because I'm some white supremacist agent of white supremacy. It's because the co-founders of the organization literally scammed people out of money and used that money to buy mansions, to buy vacations and things of that nature, right? This has all been reported on, but we like to pretend like it never happened. So it was a scam. I'm not saying there aren't people who genuinely care about these causes, but the ones who created this as an organization were scammers. Okay? Let's make sure we got that information tucked away for whenever we need it. So, you essentially have this organization who's pushing this message that, black men are being hunted down in the streets. And it's an attractive message because, again, it plays a little bit into the history, but a lot of it into the kind of race grievance industry that has already been created. Something that has been milked for ages. I mean, even before the Al Sharptons, they're already your race hustlers, individuals looking to profit off of race grievances. Oftentimes known as race hustlers or race baiters or just your simple race grifters. These individuals see it as their place to use seemingly racially motivated situations or to take an incident and make it racialized. To racialize let's say a white cop takes the life of a black individual. It's not a cop taking a citizen's life. It is instead a white cop and a black citizen, right? And it eradicates all other information, eradicates all other statistics. It doesn't put into consideration that these numbers have been dropping drastically throughout the decades, that even the year where the summer of George Floyd, 2020, that they say no more than 13 of these cases, but yet if you watched national television or if you watched a propaganda machine, you would believe that this is happening every day like clockwork, that they're just back to back to back. They were playing the same story over 24-hour cycles, psychological warfare. They're tapping into that reptilian brain, having you get into a fear state, and now you're going through life believing that you're being hunted down. And the reason I say we need to stop telling our young boys this is because it is dangerous and it creates this animosity towards police and, a certain group of individuals. I've met a host of police officers in different ways, most of which honestly was being stopped by police officers. And this was during a time, mind you, when I was deserving to be behind some sort of bars. I'll be honest. I was selling dope. Simple as that. Statute of limitation, it's been about 10 years now. I'm going to be 29 in a couple of days, so it's literally been 20 or 10 years. So when I was 19 years old, I got out that lifestyle. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, slanging. I was doing what I thought I had to do in order to fit into this image of, the culture. I wanted to be a part of what I believe was going to get me accepted. And so I became something that I really wasn't. I was a dope boy. I was using, I was selling, whatever it was. And I was stopped by the police a few times. And I'm talking about a handful and a little bit more. And I was in situations where at least 3 of them I should have got arrested. I should have. One of them I should have got a felony for distribution, etc., right? Or intent to distribute. I should have, because I had a scale in the car, etc. But yet a cop looked out for me in that situation and felt sympathy for me. It was actually the female cop as opposed to the male. And then in another situation, the worst incident I was in was I took an illegal turn, and it was a female Hispanic cop. She gave me the worst time. In between that, I've had a multitude of male white cops, and I have nothing besides simple, cordial, respectful interactions, which sounds crazy as hell because I know in some environments that's, maybe a rarity. But this myth that we are being hunted down by like the thousands is exactly that. It's a myth. It's a lie. It's a farce. It is race grievance playing out, race grievance manifest. These are individuals who are genuinely making money off of this, both the media as well as those who then take these stories and use them as, a means to raise money, to create quote unquote foundations, to create businesses, sell product. How many BLM flags, how many shirts, how many pins, were sold in the name of this scam? When you tell young black boys this lie, you are creating a deeper fear state in them. And you are having them going through life seeing these individuals who actually are supposed to be helpful as somebody to fear. And when you hear somebody like a Lil Wayne say, a white officer saved his life as a child. I don't know if you guys know about the story of Wayne, but he essentially, found a weapon in the house at like 9 years old, and nobody was home. And he popped himself, and he was going to bleed out. He was going to lose his life. And it was a white officer who was called in, Officer Rogers or something like that, who he's still friends with to this day. And that man literally saved his life. And he said from that day, like that was his perception of a police officer. The people who suffered the most after defund the police were the people in those neighborhoods, in the most impoverished neighborhoods, in the neighborhoods that are filled with the criminal element, where people are sick and tired of it. There's only a small group of people who are committing a majority of the crimes. And when those people aren't targeted, then unfortunately everybody suffers. And there's like cases of profiling, et cetera. I used to think profiling was just based off of just racism. I didn't understand the nuances of that conversation. It's simply just racism. It's simply just racism. No, it is what we call pattern recognition. In the modern day and age, if we're to be dead honest with ourselves, the only reason somebody is looking to say, is this person suspicious or not, is because unfortunately there is a certain look, there is a certain aesthetic, there's a certain way of being, there's certain mannerisms, etc. It's like if you're going to look for gang members, there are certain profiles, there are certain mannerisms, there's an avatar per se that you're looking for. That's profiling. But instead it was twisted into, no, this is just a racist thing. There are people in the hood who are profiling every single day who are from the hood. They have to profile to survive. They got to pattern recognize to survive, to know who's what and who's to be avoided. Okay, don't be in these type of areas with these type of individuals. Is that racism? Is that black on black racism? No, it's discernment. And we're called to have discernment in life. We're called to have righteous judgment in life. Not to go through life blindsided, willy-nilly, not really, seeing what's right in front of us. No, we're supposed to recognize our environment. But to continue to perpetuate these lies, it's so harmful. And for me, I used to be deeply afraid. I used to think these racist cops are out to get me, but I was also raised to respect not just them, but anybody. If I'm in a situation with somebody who it's like it could be tension there, I'm not the one to just escalate things just because. That's not me. I'm not built like that. If it goes there, then it goes there. That's a very different situation. If it's defense, it's defense. But if we don't have to go there, we can talk it out. And that's simply what these police officers, in a majority of cases, I'm not saying there aren't any bad seed, bad apples. Of course, there's that in every respect. Every place you go, there's going to be bad seeds. It's not race. It's not job. It's not whatever. It's just you're going to find individuals who are like that. Psychopathic, sociopathic, whatever. Right? But you go through a situation like that cordially, respectfully, 9 times out of 9, you're going to get out that situation. 9 times out of 9, you're going to get out that situation okay. But if there's problems, if you may be a criminal or, you're indulging something, whatever, then it's not promised. If you're coming off disrespectfully, hostilely, then it's not promised. Or if you are in the one situation out of the multitudes of thousands of thousands of thousands of situations, because the statistics show that. It's like if you had only 13, let's say to the maximum, 13 people that this happened to, that were black and got their life taken by a white officer. Let's say there's 13 cases. Then how many more does it leave that it didn't happen to? This is fractals of a fractal of a fractal of a percentage. And so if you happen to be in that percentage, you are in the rarest case, rarer than being struck by lightning lightly, right? So we need to strip this kind of story away and instead say, look, in life, there are those who have your best interests and those who don't. There are those who are dysfunctional, those who don't. And if truth be told, most of the people you got to look out for are the ones who are in that immediate environment, in your own environment, right? Who's having their lives taken by black people more than anybody else? It's going to be other black people. Who's having their lives taken by white people more than anybody else? It's going to be other white people in those environments. But if you want to look at the real numbers, and again, these ones piss people off. People hate reality. At least some people do. I know y'all don't. You know, it is what it is. But they say it's like 436 white people whose lives are taken a year, or at least last year, 2024, whose lives were taken by a black person. And then 87 black folks whose lives were taken by a white person. More than 4x. Yet the story is always flipped because it's convenient, right? We get to play the victim or whatever it is. I say to hell with all of it. All of it is degenerate. All of it is dysfunctional. You know, I wish we could eradicate with every single aspect of it, but to perpetuate this lie is a very dangerous thing, and it doesn't help any of us. And again, as we've seen on the other side, the people who have been needing the police forces, they've been needing police assistance in these neighborhoods are the ones who are no longer getting it. There was a story I covered of a woman. She was, of course, a far left white liberal type, and she was actually one of these defund the police activists. This woman essentially made her like entire identity defund the police until she found herself in a situation where all her belongings were stolen. She had packed up a U-Haul, I guess was moving out of San Francisco, wherever the hell she was. And yeah, it was in SF actually. And all of a sudden, her U-Haul gets jacked, and now she's calling for the police, who happen to not have the resources to help in that very situation. Yeah. So just imagine those who are in Southside Chicago. You know, East Palo Alto has been cleaning up, but, you know, the East Palo Altos or the East Oaklands or whatever it is. I'm speaking from Bay Area perspective because that's just what's ingrained in here, right? Baltimore, Memphis, wherever it may be. Imagine those people who just want a civilized and safe environment. There's no person who's not a criminal that doesn't want safety. Even a criminal wants safety at some level, ironically enough. But when we defend it and then we lie about it and then we make somebody else the enemy, like we scapegoat what's actually the problem, because, you know, you're called like a sellout, you're called an agent of white supremacy, whatever, when you talk about the actual issue. When you bring up black on black crime or black on black violence, nobody wants to talk about that. Black lives don't matter anymore. All of a sudden, oh, what black lives? It's only when it's convenient. It's only when it's convenient. It's only when you are directing your hatred towards the white man doing it that it is now applicable, that it is now celebrated, that you can now fundraise. Nobody's raising millions upon millions of dollars for what's going on in Southside Chicago. Nobody. But they are when they have that one incident that happens, you know, in the square in New York or something like that. They're going to publicize that for 6 months. They're going to make monuments off of that because people are making millions off of that. And I don't mind people making money. Make your money. I'm a pro-capitalist guy. I'm a pro-free market guy, okay? Make your money. But if you're going to make it on the behalf of lies and deception and things of that nature, then I don't respect that. I can't respect it. I'm going to tell the truth about it. And I'm going to call you out for exactly what you're doing. I'm not just going to let that slide. Absolutely not. The children's worst enemy is not that white police officer in a police uniform. Unfortunately, it is likely a little boy who looks just like them. And unfortunately, some of y'all have to take y'all kids, y'all families out of those environments with these types of individuals, you know, into a white neighborhood or into a non-quote-unquote black neighborhood just for you to feel safe, just for your kids to feel safe, just for you to have a good night's sleep. That's the God honest truth. And that's a cultural issue. And that's why I continue to highlight the cultural issues that are taking place. It's never been about race, but it's been racialized. And when you racialize it, you then got to strip away the race aspect and say, well, why is this happening? Is it because black folk are just like this? No, because there are too many black folk who don't stand for this, who are against this, who despise it. I've heard too many stories. I've seen too many people pull up and speak truth to power in these comments, etc. Too many voices that are now out here telling the truth. Hopefully even more voices that continue to echo the same sentiment of truth, that say, I'm tired of this damn culture too. That's not who we are. That's never been who we were. But when we allow it, when we enable it, and when we continue to feed a lie, we get the exact same results.
I used to be afraid of the dark, place unknown like a heart in their heart. I used to see my life in the bar. Now the kids unchained, every shackle is lost. 2 steps in the moonlight, 2 step in the daytime. You just know when it feel right. You got a feeling the time's night. See you through those shades that I just threw on. Through my lenses, you just can't do no wrong. I fell in love with myself again. I fell in love with myself. I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night. I can see the light again. I can see the light. You can see the life in him illuminate the night. I know the time is taking. A 365, that's a full rotation. I see you looking up. You know them constellations. Constantly gazing